Christmas. Let's see what we have. There's no place like hell for the holidays. Look, I ain't much of a storyteller. Didn't even graduate high school. But I got nowhere else to turn. It all started when I stole that guy's passport. I mean, maybe it started even earlier than that. Way earlier. I guess I was always gonna turn out crooked. At home, nobody cared what I wanted, and there was no money to buy it anyhow. But I had this cousin, right? This guy had all kinds of cash to spare. I was just a kid, but he treated me. Made me feel important. So it was no big deal when he asked me to distract this three-piece suit lawyer for a few seconds. When we turned the corner, he handed me the guy's wallet. And that was just a taste. My cousin and his buddies got me deeper and deeper into their little schemes. I was 13 by then, and if I got scared or didn't want to do it, all they had to do was call me a pansy or shove me around till I did as I was told. Truth is, they played me like a damn piano. Of course, before long, I got caught. But getting caught only made me want to get better. Easy stuff at first. Tourists, unattended luggage, drunk college students. I dressed up as a waiter, bow tie and all, to raid the purses of some charity events. Even got myself hired on as a janitor for a few months just to snag this one stockbroker's computer. Hey, if it pays, I don't ask. That's why the big guy sent me over to the airport. Great place to skim credit cards, for one. Luxury shops. First-class carry-ons. Fake Wi-Fi for snagging passwords, account numbers, and more. But the real money is in paperwork. Companies pay top dollar for a look at the competition's plans, and everybody wants a first-world passport. The guy was mayonnaise pale and blonde as an 80s centerfold. Tailored suit, too. All the same, he was trying hard not to stand out. Same as me. That made him interesting. Maybe he had a secret to sell. All it took was a little bump and a reach inside his front pocket to get what I was after. I stuffed his paperwork inside my own coat and sidled off into the restroom to check what I had lifted. First off, the guy's passport was white, like glowing white. The gold letters on it weren't of any language that I'd ever seen before, and instead of pages for stamps or personal details, there was just a single coin with 7 circles around it. I frowned. I was on my way to throw it into the trash when all hell broke loose in the airport outside. First, there was so much security running around. I wondered if the Taliban were holding a convention in the food court. It wasn't just the usual rent-a-cops either, but also the G.I. Joe types with their big-ass guns and some Men in Black-looking chumps with their earpieces and Anchorman haircuts. They were stopping and frisking people, and nobody was getting out those front doors. It made me wonder just whose pocket I'd picked. Apologies. It made me wonder just whose pocket I'd picked. Gave me an idea, too. I figured I'd just walk up to the border control and flash this guy's passport. If they let me through, I was in the clear. If not, I could always just say I found the damn thing. A funny thing happened when I held up the white passport. The rent-a-cop got all slack-jawed and hazy-eyed, more than they usually were. She just waved me through. No stamp, no questions, no nothing. Everybody was waiting on me to go forward. So I did. A couple summers back, me and my cousin got drunk and jumped off a railroad bridge onto this nasty brown river that runs through town. Soon as I stepped off, I knew I'd made one big-ass mistake. It was way higher than we'd thought, and I spun like a windmill all the way down. I don't know how far I fell, but it was far enough to count a lot of heartbeats. Anyhow, stepping through that security gate felt sort of like diving into that river. Suddenly it was darker than the inside of a mobster's trunk, and I was falling, 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 until I came out the other side. It might have taken a couple of seconds, it might have taken a couple of years, I couldn't say. There was absolutely no heartbeat to count. Far as I could tell, I was still in the airport, except it was pitch black outside, and there were no people, no guards, no arguing families or yogurt shop cashiers or hippies in flip-flops running to catch a flight. Nobody. The Muzak still played over the loudspeakers. The moving walkways and trams and escalators still ran. So where the hell were all the people? For a second, I even considered trying to turn back, but I didn't want to go back through that darkness again. It seemed hungry. I started walking. What else could I do? For the first time in my life, I actually hoped, no, prayed that I'd see an authority figure. Anybody who could help me or just tell me what the hell was going on. Anything but this endless fluorescent lights and tile floors. I kept going. I just didn't want to admit that the place I was in was actually truly infinite. I didn't want to admit that when I'd crossed that plastic barrier, I'd stepped out of the real world and into someplace else. So I walked. I kept going a long time after my throat felt like I'd gargled sandpaper, and to the point where my legs turned to jelly. What I found when I finally gave up and went back, though, it was even worse. The security checkpoint, the place I'd started from, it was gone. No matter which way I looked, the endless hallway stretched on, the same, forever in both directions. I punched the wall, screamed for help, sat down, cried. Nothing made any difference. I don't know how much time passed. I just know that after a while, I got sort of crazy. I shattered glass and tried to dig through the wall with it. I yanked up a moving walkway and tried to crawl out through the gears underneath the floor. I argued with myself. Apparently, me and myself both think that I'm a real piece of shit. I was still hollering at nothing when the wind picked up. I didn't notice it first, but it picked up quick. So much so that I had to grip onto the guardrail to keep from getting carried off by it. I flew out to Vegas once a long time ago to make a drop, and the wind smelled like the air out there. Dust, gasoline, and the end of the world. It wasn't just empty air either. There were people in it. Or at least they looked like they'd been people once. They were thin and wearing rags, like in those pictures of prison camp survivors. They tried to hang on to anything that they could, even each other, but the wind just dragged them along. Cold fingers grabbed onto my hair. More caught onto my pants. I was almost ripped off the guardrail. And then they were gone. Sucked down into that endless corridor like dust into a vacuum cleaner. I pulled myself up and looked at my reflection in the black glass door to one of those interterminal trams. After who knows how long without food or water, I didn't look very different from those things. With a ping, the tram doors opened. I blinked. I couldn't believe it. I saw seats and poles for passengers, but no light. No way of telling where it went, neither. I looked around. I didn't want to wait for another cloud of starving maniacs to come blowing down the hallway. And who knew when another tram door would stop and open? I got in. Soon as the doors closed, I wished I'd taken my chances in the hallway. The wagon started moving, and I realized that I wasn't alone. Whispers all around, eyes in the dark, big, white, hungry eyes, like junkies looking for a pile of coke. And I was it. Hands, hundreds of them, grabbing and pulling and shoving. My watch and shades were gone right away. They fought over my clothes till they ripped off my body, even my damned shoes. I wound up naked and curled into that position that people always seem to curl into when they're getting stomped for missing a payment. This time, though, it was me on the cold metal floor. They kept pawing at me long after I had nothing left to take. Well, nothing except that strange passport. They didn't even try to take it. Another ping. The doors opened, and those horrible eyes and hands retreated into the shadows like cockroaches beneath a kitchen light. I was shivering like a damn puppy when I crawled out and into the terminal. Scratched, bloody, and wearing nothing but my birthday suit. I fit right in. The terminal, I remembered. Rows of vinyl chairs, big white columns, gates with desks and little screens. Like any airport, any place, I guess. It was the things walking around that made it so wrong. It was them that made me miss prison. The ones in line beside me looked normal enough until I noticed that their heads would turn around backwards, like that girl from The Exorcist. They shuffled forwards, or backwards, depending on how you looked at it, just the same, though, passports in hand. Theirs were blood red. A tall thing in a red robe checked their papers as they passed. I was glad for its robe and its hood, too, because based off its hands and neck that were too inhumanly long, I didn't think I wanted to see what it was. On the black screen behind it were 8 red rings. I guess I must have been staring too long, because I got this feeling like spiders were crawling up the back of my neck. I realized that all those backwards people were slowly turning their heads my way. The hooded thing at the gate looked interested too. Hungry, more like. I wrapped my hand round my balls and got out of there like a cold, scared, beat-up guy with a hand round his balls. Face front, I told myself. Don't listen to the bloated, dead things eating each other on the left, or look at the big ones with whips and too many teeth on the right. It was kind of like when I was a kid, hiding in the closet while Dad laid into Mom with a belt. You just gotta keep quiet and hope that nobody notices you. Magical thinking, I guess it's called. A professor I robbed once was writing a book about it. Most of the black screens just showed rings, 3 or 6 or 2. A few had names, but they were in a funny language, like the one from the guy's passport. Even when they came up in English, they were places that I'd never heard of. Where the hell is Cucutus or Dis? The last one caught my attention because I recognized the guy at the desk. It was my old buddy Rex, which was sort of funny because the last time I saw Rex, he was on the bottom of a muddy hole with 5 bullets in his chest. But here he was, dressed in this weird flight attendant getup, with the gunpowder smoke still rising out of the holes in his back. He was checking the documents on some guy in a suit whose head was on fire. Rex looked at me and waved. I slowly started heading over to him right up until the point where he said that he was glad to see me. Sure, he said it like a guy who might have died in a swamp, but that wasn't what made me turn and run like hell. It was the extra jaw and the 2 tongues. Seeing Rex gave me the bright idea to check this guy's passport again. Maybe there was something in there that I could use. There were 7 rings round where this coin was. Where the coin had been, anyway. It was gone. Made me think that it was some kind of a fee I'd paid to get here. Though, you'd have to be one real sick bastard to pay for what I'd gone through. The coin was the key, and I was going to need another one. Problem was, none of the passengers seemed to have them. Coins only appeared in the passports of the other things. The ones with too many body parts, and all of them in the wrong places. The ones who smelled like hate and sulfur. The ones who'd ripped me apart for fun. I was going to have to pull off the biggest lift of my life to get out of here. I walked around in that awful crowd for a long time before I saw an opening. The flash of a white passport like mine, only there was something shiny inside of it. I closed in on the thing holding it. I figured I'd try to just bump it, but it slipped the passport back between its folds, and when I reached for it, the thing's skin was so hot that it burned me. I guess I got lucky, because it didn't seem to notice. Once I got to the point that I didn't want to puke just from seeing, hearing, and smelling the place, I was able to notice a couple of details. Firstly, most of the passengers seemed to be outbound, while the others were mostly inbound or some kind of security. Almost all of them had passports with coins. I was watching them from behind one of those big white columns when I finally saw my break. A thing like a huge centipede with a human head tried to eat one of the passengers. It lifted this fat dead guy up into the air with one claw, and his jaw dropped to the floor, ready to swallow the guy whole. A bull-headed thing with a meat cleaver didn't like that one bit, and pretty soon they were fighting over the poor bastard. I didn't watch him get shredded, 'cause I saw what I wanted between the centipede thing's scales. A white passport, just like mine. There was a big crowd by then, so it wasn't hard to get close. I made it look like I was just knocked into the back of the centipede thing. But when I bumped against it, I swapped its passport for mine and fell down amongst the skittering legs. I rolled out of there fast, but not fast enough to avoid getting a big nasty gash down my back. I got up, though, and staggered towards the tram with nobody the wiser, as far as I could tell, at least. Nothing bothered me long as I was holding a coin-in passport. I stepped back onto the dark tram and I thought about home. I thought about the dirty brown river and the bored rent-a-cops at the airport. I thought about the weeds in the sidewalk in the run-down street where I'd lived. I thought about my stained old mattress lying on the floor in my tiny apartment. Seemed like heaven all of a sudden. The tram rumbled into motion, and when I heard it ping again, I was back in the airport that I knew. Of course, I was arrested for public indecency, but I didn't care. Hell, I didn't even notice. I wanted to kiss that cop on the cheek just for existing. From the gum on the sidewalk to the smog over the city, it was beautiful. Damn beautiful. It wasn't long until my cousin bailed me out. You should have seen his face when I hugged him. He dropped me off back here at the apartment. Thing is, I got thinking. The mark I stole the passport from looked just like any ordinary guy. started to make me wonder how many of those things are out there that look human, but ain't. Maybe that thing is still out there, looking for a coin or something to trade, trying to get itself back to wherever the hell it came from. And that ain't all. Maybe I'm just going nuts here, but I think I feel crawling under that cut that the centipede thing made in my back. Like there's a bunch of little worms in there with lots of legs. It's like I can almost hear them in my head. They're telling me I gotta go back to that airport. They're getting louder. I will admit, based on the title of this story, I did think that it would be Christmas themed. But I will not say that I'm disappointed, for this one was really intriguing. Where do you think he went? What do you think those other things were? And do you think he'll be able to resist the urge to return? Let me know in the comments below. And do feel free to like, subscribe, and join me again for more Frail Blaze tales.